Okay, we got it.
Josiah Rowell is here to convey his message.
So, on behalf of Representative MacEwen, I'd just like to read a brief statement this morning. Good morning, friends. I regret that I'm unable to join you this morning for this legislative send-off. As the ranking Republican on General Government and Information Technology Committee, the Governor requested that I, along with other key legislative leaders, meet with him, Department of Homeland Security, and the FBI in Seattle today concerning cybersecurity threats. So that's why Representative MacEwen is not with us this morning. I believe that hearing from constituents is the most valuable part of the legislative process. My legislative aide, myself, will take notes on my behalf and share with me your feedback. Should you guys, any of you, wish to speak with me directly, please speak with me. And, I thought it was funny the way you wrote it. So if you guys have any additional questions or would like to speak with Representative MacEwen, please get with me and I'll schedule a meeting or a phone call. I wish you all the very best for 2016 and I look forward to representing you in the upcoming session. Thank you very much.
So with that, I don't know that an introduction is necessary, but I will give one anyway. We have Representative Dan Griffey, who was born and raised in Allen, Washington. He married his childhood sweetheart, Dinah, with whom he has 3 daughters and a bouncing baby grandson.
Granddaughter as well.
And a granddaughter.
We got bookends on
At just 16, Dan began volunteering for the local fire department and was glad to respond to calls, even from school. Then went on to become one of the youngest EMTs in Washington State. And he has just finished up serving his freshman year in the legislature. Senator Tim Sheldon has served 23 years in the Washington State legislature as a Democrat representing the sprawling 35th district. Since 2004, he's also represented Mason County as a Mason County Commissioner for District 2. Tim was born in Mason County, has lived here most of his life after attending several different colleges and earning his MBA at University of Washington. Go Dogs. So briefly, I'd just like to give you guys 2 minutes each just to kind of intro, talk a little bit about the committees that you're on and what you're looking forward to this year at the legislature.
Well, thank you very much. Great to be here. You know, I think back about all the times that we've had these meetings together, and they've always been very productive and useful. Actually, I've been in the legislature for 25 years. I start my 26th year this time. I think I'm going to be 3rd in seniority out of 147 legislators. How did that time go so fast? It really is. I do serve on the Transportation Committee in the Senate. We also have a joint Transportation Committee that meets when the legislature is not in session with House and Senate members. I also serve on that committee. And also I'm the vice chair of the Energy, Environment, and Telecommunications Committee. So that's been an exciting committee because politics and energy are very closely aligned, and we have quite a few issues with energy sources, and obviously we're a very strong public power community here in Mason County with PUD 1 and PUD 3. So I've been very active in public power issues as well. And I also serve on the Rules Committee for the Senate, so as well as the leadership team that we have in our, what we call our Majority Coalition Caucus. And it'll be a very interesting session. Looking forward to everything that will be happening.
So thanks again for having me. I am delighted to once again be sitting in front of you. It took me a long time to get here, as I always say, and I am taking every opportunity to say thank you and to show my appreciation for letting me be here. I've had a great year. I think I was built for this job. Constituent casework means a lot to me, and we had 1,500 people can call our office needing help, and we were able to get nearly all of them help. Some of them are federal issues. We were able to refer them to either Congressman Denny Heck or Congressman Kilmer's office to try to get their federal issues helped anywhere we could help them at the state level. We did. I serve on the local government committee, the public safety committee, and the education committee, K-12 policy committee. All of them are fun. The most challenging committee for me was the K-12 education committee, because I thought the fire service used acronyms. Education uses a lot. I mean, I needed to have a cheat sheet to start with, but I'm there now. I think, did a lot of good things for education last year. We're coming closer to meeting our obligations under McClary decision. We made a big step last year to get there. Anyone in the news lately hear about the letting the prisoners out early? Well, that's Public Safety Committee, has jurisdiction over that, so I expect that we're going to be doing a lot of work on that, and there will be some corrections officials having a lot of explaining to do. Local Government Committee deals with land use, and anybody that's ever heard one of my campaign speeches understands that land use and protecting private property ownership is near and dear to my heart. I chose to serve on that committee, where I am the assistant ranking committee member. I did that for a reason. I really want to do something about it. To that end, I have 2 or 3 bills this year with regards to how we're going to move. Anyway, it looks like I'm out of time, so I'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to serving you this year in the legislature.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like to present, well, first of all, I'm remiss to have not pointed out all of the partners here today. So we're very excited to have our first annual legislative send-off with the City of Shelton, Mason County, the Mason County EDC, the North Mason Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce. So we know that you guys are time is a precious commodity, so we're very excited that we're able to get all of these parties in the same room and be able to take just a little bit of your time. So, for the 2016 legislative priorities of the Chamber, first we recognize, agree, and appreciate your continued focus on fully funding education and the considerable work that you have put and continue to put towards finding an equitable solution. As the Shelton School District embarks on its Graduation Matters Shelton initiative, we expect that businesses will be asked to step up to the plate with funding and in-kind support, and we hope that you will closely watch and support the effort at the local level. As a similar effort in Missoula, Montana has been embraced as a successful model statewide. We look forward to the possibility of Shelton leading the way in advancing creative local approaches to ensure a high-quality education. So, along with that, we also ask, you kind of hit on it a little bit, to set the priorities of government, and that you're prioritizing those activities and the budget based on those priorities. Transportation costs, we are very excited and want to thank you for developing and passing a transportation package which includes funding for the Belfair bypass, and we ask that you remain diligent in seeking reforms to deliver these regulatory and permitting systems. Continue to deliver these projects efficiently and effectively. Beyond that, protecting our resource industries, we ask that you continue to keep an eye on the solution towards protecting our environment. And that incentives should be used to keep these industries on the landscape. Any proposals limiting the competitiveness of these industries should be thwarted. We ask that you also continue to help rural communities thrive. As you're well aware, it's easy to look at the recovering economy, which we're lagging behind, and that you continue to reduce impacts of growth that effectively help just a portion of our population in Washington State. We were happy to see reforms passed in 2011 towards Washington State's worker compensation costs. Yet other reforms and additional legislation continue to languish. We believe that innovations such as the Locker Safety Initiative and the Stay at Work program show promise in ensuring worker safety while controlling costs, and encourage partnerships such as those with employers, employees, and Department of L&I continue to be encouraged. Lastly, with climate change, as Governor Inslee continues in his pursuit of executive action to control carbon emissions, we ask that the legislature refrain from enacting any proposal that can harm businesses in our state. So, I don't know if you guys have any questions on any of that, or?
Seems pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would comment too that I think people have to put this session in perspective, because it will only be supposedly 60 days. So our last session was the longest in Washington State history with its special sessions, 179 days. So if we get out in 60, that'll be 1/3 the time. And things are going to happen very, very fast. So while there's a lot of things proposed and to look at, this isn't a budget year. We're going to write a supplemental budget, which will probably contain the money to pay for the forest fires this last year, for example, and some of the other items that occurred. But it won't be a year for brand new initiatives. Probably won't be a year for a capital budget as well, because of the size of our debt right now, and probably take another year to drive down our capacity, or raise our capacity for debt in the capital budget. But that doesn't mean we can't start to get ready for that capital budget year next year as well.
Very good. Okay, with that, I would like to invite up Commissioner Terry Jeffries to introduce the county's priorities.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you to the EDC and to the Chamber for allowing us to piggyback, because I don't know how many of these you guys go to, but it's a very efficient way for us to share with you what's important to us. Mason County's legislative priorities are more longer term, and so I know that with legislation, it's better to get in early and start talking about these things early so that any differences could be worked out. And Mason County's issues are basically counties' issues statewide, and the Washington State Association of Counties has initiated a fiscal sustainability initiative. And one of the issues I wanted to bring home here on one of those initiatives is the difficulty county government and local government in general has in meeting the rising cost of labor of our employees within the 1% limit on property tax growth. And the Association of Counties is proposing that that be looked at. The 1% is somewhat arbitrary in that our labor costs just on wages to keep up with inflation is 2% per year. Department of Retirement Systems, our retirement pay-in is about 22% increases per year, 12% increases in labor and industry. All of that under the context of 1% property growth. There's a proposal that we look at the things that really do our cost drivers to the county, one of them being population and inflation, and tie property tax increases to inflation and population growth. So we'd like you to take a look at that, and I just wanted to bring home to you folks how it's difficult in Mason County. We have a recruit and retain issue of the counties around us that are recovering from the recession a lot faster than us are able to recruit our own employees, and we get them trained up. They come in at the bottom level, we get them trained up, and now they're trained up to go off even to the state. So it's been very difficult for us to keep the best and the brightest here, and we just wanted to bring that home, how it affects us. Another thing, as you know, and I'm sure you've heard a lot, is there's the issue of mental illness and our criminal justice issues, problems. There was, starting last summer, a group of the law enforcement of the city of Shelton and Mason County, as well as our hospital district, our mental health providers for the Medicaid eligible people, behavioral health resources, and the regional support network management, have been getting together to try to come up with an idea of how to solve the issue of people who have, either through mental illness or substance abuse or the combination of the two, are out there in our streets, sometimes homeless, sometimes not, And due to decompensation or destabilization of their mental conditions, are a harm to themselves and to the public. So you see something like this happen, or even in somebody's home, and the police get a call, and what do they do with this person? The only alternative is the ER, which is totally unprepared for this. Our ER does not have psychiatric care. They can treat whether this person cut themselves, they can treat whether this person broke their leg, but then they have nowhere else to send them. And they are, by case law, not allowed to involuntarily hold anybody unless they have psychiatric treatment planning in place for them and even at care. So then the other alternative is this person more than likely broke a law. So now we bring them into our jail, and our jails are not mental health facilities, and they're not prepared for this. We are making steps to address what can we do about this, in that we will have a mobile response team, so that when an officer gets a call and finds this is an issue that's not really a criminal issue, they could call in a mental health professional and people trained to treat them, but again, they have no place to take them. Thurston County is building a facility, such a facility, but we've already been told by them that it could be not usable, or the beds will be filled right away. We would very much like to work with the 35th Legislative District to secure some funding to build a facility here in Mason County. Having one close by also helps our law enforcement not to have to be out of county and off the road. And so they're here to respond to more calls. So this is more of a longer term, but we'd sure like to work with you at the capital budget to see if we can build or rehab a current facility here in the county, so that we can just quit inappropriately using our jails and our ER. And then finally, I just wanted to make sure that you knew too that the Supreme Court has done a few things that have cost a lot of money, both to state government and a local government, one of them being a caseload limit for public defense, defender attorneys. They are limited to the point that it has increased the cost of our public defense services 23% since 2012. The state mandates in our Constitution that everybody be given the right to an attorney if they cannot afford one. And the burden of that cost almost solely rests on county government. And the exponential increase in the costs was addressed by the legislature last year. $2 million statewide, which amounted to $10,000 increase. But overall, the state contribution to public defense costs is about 8% of our total budget. And the monies we do get are must be to enhance public safety or public defense, as opposed to paying for just the general cost of it. So we want to make sure that you're aware of what we're doing for the state and as agents of the state, and some of our outdated ways of paying for county governments probably need to be looked at. And there's, like I said, long term. We appreciate the work you've done in capital budget to help all of our organizations here in the community, and then with the transportation budget to get the bypass, which is so necessary. And we just are asking that you look at some of the mandated services of the county and how we are able to fund them, or how we've been having to cobble together this funding. So look forward to working with you, especially on our mental health triage facility. Thank you.
Did you have any questions or comments for Karen?
Well, so I deal with the mental health problem in my other job, and it's not only law enforcement that's going to help, it's your ambulances. Very few of them that we have in Mason County are constantly transporting people back and forth, and they're transporting them to emergency rooms, which is absolutely where they shouldn't be. They should be in a urgent or a crisis treatment, because all of these people that we see are in crisis. The complication is, are they mental health or are they substance abuse, which is causing mental health? And we find that is, what you have to do is kind of dry them out in one of these facilities. So I will work really hard to try to make that happen.
Well, this is going to be my last year as a county commissioner. I only have 361 days left. And, so So I saw this yesterday, the legislative priorities. I didn't have a chance to see this before the other two commissioners put this together. But a couple things strike me, and I think as a legislator. First of all, when you come to Olympia as a county and you say, we need additional funding, the first thing the legislator says is, have you implemented all the other tools that we've given you? And while we had, at the county level, have implemented the 1/10 of 1% for mental health, we haven't implemented all of the capacity we have for criminal justice. So that's something that I think the county ought to really sincerely look at before they ask for more money. You've got to be able to use all the tools that you have. For the mental health facility, of course, I think this is a good plan, but it's only a beginning. It has to be on the capital facilities plan for the county, which is not yet. So I think that's important too. And in the facing criminal or indigent defense, this is a big problem, and I think that we really have to lean on the legislature to provide more assistance, because we are subdivisions of the state as a county. So we are responsible for the jail, for the parole system, the juvenile detention. We're responsible for the indigent defense, and 98% of the people that go on trial, criminal trial, are indigent in Mason County. That's crazy, 98%. So I had a bill last year that would have allowed the judges to ask more questions about your status as indigent, because under the law before, all you had to say was, I get public assistance. And then the judge could not ask any other questions, like, do you have any assets, do you have a car, do you have a house, do you have a bank account? So while the bill passed the Senate, it did not pass the House, but fortunately, it's been implemented by a state Supreme Court decision. So now our judges can ask more questions, and hopefully we can start to make sure that people that come before the judge and go to trial in Mason County are truly indigent. So that I think will be helpful, but we still need more assistance in criminal justice.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to have the city of Shelton come on to present their priorities.
I just turned off my phone.
Thank you.
Our agenda is really largely future-oriented. We understand this is not typically the session that you do a capital budget, so some of the things are that. Some of the things are things we've been talking about for a while, and some of them are a little new. So, at any rate, the first one, and this is one that's just, we've been back again and again, it's Basin 3, which is a sewer project. As you know, we've spent an enormous amount of money, $56 million these past several years, for the last 10 years, on sewer projects. And most of it's with borrowed money, which has left us with the average residential sewer bill starting January 1 of this year at $111 per month. That's just for sewer. And then you have water, and you have stormwater and garbage on top of that. So what we're trying to do, we have one more project left to do, and all the projects that we've done have been pursuant to state mandates, and we've cooperated, we've done those. But kind of done. If we borrow any more money, then those rates get even higher. So far we've done well. We've lined up about $3.5 million in grants, which has been thank you to the state for really the source of those funds. But we're still $3.3 million short on being able to line up grant dollars for that. So we're looking wherever we can find it. We're looking for additional grant dollars. So we can close the loop that way rather than having to do another rate increase to pay for it. And by the way, while we're talking about it, if there's a way to do debt relief and forgive any of these loans, so that we can, that would be ideal, and of course, any relief that we got, we would dedicate that to rate relief. Another thing that's come, when the Simpson sold and the Olympic panel plywood scheduled its closure. We looked around after we picked ourselves up, we looked around for opportunities, and I think one of the opportunities that we have is the Simpson Railroad, which SPI does not want. And what we want to do is to turn it into a tourist attraction. And so it's an economic development opportunity that we want to pursue. It's going to take some money to do that. It's in real short supply for us right now, as you've heard already. But we're pursuing that. Simpson is interested in this, and we have our discussions have gone a long ways toward actually having the Simpson Railroad, including the roundhouse and the right-of-way, and a lot of the equipment into the city's hands for that purpose. Another thing that you've surely been watching is the downtown plan that we've developed. We're at the point that the plan was finished up last year. We're about to begin discussions on trying to put together a plan. We don't have anything specific for you right now, but that's coming. And we may ask for some help on that too, depending on what it comes up with. And finally, and this is something that you see bills in the legislature every year having to do with public records. And what I would ask is that you walk through just about any public agency office in the state, into the various offices, and walk in and look at the paper that's laying around. So when someone comes in and they make a records request, ask yourself whether it's really possible for that records request to be filled perfectly. Now, the state doesn't expect you to do a records request good. They want you to do it perfectly, and the consequences of that are that you don't supply the citizen that's making the request with the records, nor, and you subject yourself to significant liability if you don't get it perfect. The solution to that is to use the technology to house the records, just like you used the technology to create all these records. Because that's the reason that we have them all, is because we've got these printers now, and we've got all this technology, and we have people who sit there and make records all day long, and email and other things. But that takes money, and it takes time. And I would suggest that the solution to the problem, in order to be able to serve that need for the citizens, is to not just in Shelton, but everywhere, to just go paperless. The whole of our government entities.
I want to speak against that, Dave.
I wonder why.
I appreciate that. I'll look for you to be an ally. Answer questions, comments.
We're dealing with public records request. We had several hearings on it last year. It is a major problem. On one hand, the public paid to have the record generated, so the public has the right to access it. I mean, that's absolute. I will not back down from that. But if you look into the myriad of problems that we see, large out-of-state requests, I think we get in that. I think an out-of-state request, you don't live in Washington State, you don't have interest in Washington State, you got to be from Washington State. Those large requests are generally they want your information that the government entity developed so they can market. They want to make money off of a public record. I do not support that. So I think in our schools, they have huge out-of-state requests. I think we can start with some reforms. I think as much as we can go, sorry, Patty, paperless, I think is a good idea, and it'll help us. Meet your needs for information requests. The other thing is, I stand committed, as I was this year, to try to help you get finished with it. I hope someday with all of the sewer expansions and not bankrupt the city. So, as well as I'd like to work with the county on that. So, thank you.
Well, I guess when Olympic Panel closes here in a couple of months, we'll have the first time in 100 years we won't have a mill operating in Shelton. And I think the city has done a really good job working with SBI, trying to get the new mill underway. Working with them, and then also we were able to find last year $500,000 for mill relief and for our community, and also about $3 million, $1.5 million for the city of Shelton, and $1.5 million for welfare for sewer. And well, the mayor's here. I just want to compliment the mayor. Here's a guy who didn't, he just got in his own car and drove around this state talking to other communities, and worked so hard last session to develop a coalition of other communities that have the same issues that we do with extremely high sewer rates. And the commission was very supportive of that as well. We met, the mayor and I met with Maya Bellin with the Department of Ecology here just a couple months ago, just before Christmas. And it looks like they'll get a little leeway on some of the mandates that the Department of Ecology has and the timelines that they've given the city. So working together, I think we're making good progress. The public records request, I think, is something that legislature works on each year. I don't know that we'll make a great stride this year, but it is a very big issue. And of course, we're very much up against the newspaper association. And there's newspaper people in the room, and newspapers are great, but it's wonderful to have all this access, and the entities like the cities and counties, school districts, they need to be compensated somewhat. You know, it's funny, we made great progress in stopping prisoners from making all public records requests all day long, but that's about the greatest progress we've made. We've got to make sure that it is an efficient system, so that's going to be something we'll keep working on. You know, the city, I always say this, I hope I don't bore you with it, but the 35th district is the most rural district in the state. You wouldn't think that. That should be in Okanagan someplace, or Eastern Washington. But the only incorporated city we have is in the district is Shelton, and of course a little bit of Bremerton. So we're unique in that way, and we always have to kind of remember that, and we do in the legislature, because we're the poster child for a rural community, and we have much different needs than our close urban neighbors.
Thank you.
Last but of course not least, I'd like to introduce Lynn Longin. She's Executive Director of the Mason County EDC.
Thank you. So I'm going off script here. First of all, on behalf of the Economic Development Council, I want to thank you. I want to reiterate what Heidi had said about the welfare bypass and the transportation package. This is very near and dear to the Economic Development Council because it means improving our economy, especially up in the north end, but really both ends. With the addition of another carrier in Bremerton, that's another 3,000 people, it's even more important that we do whatever we can to get that bypass in and ease the transportation in that area. I do realize that the funding for the bypass isn't slated until 2019, so we would ask that as you're going to session, if there's any opportunity to move up the schedule and move the bypass up, we would appreciate that, but also just remaining and keeping up the mantra of it, making sure that it stays as a priority. So that's one of our biggest priorities. Another one is I want to thank you for the Mason Transit Authority has the 6 new park and rides that are funded. That's another transportation part of it. It's another it's an economic driver in our county. So those 2 things. And then also you had mentioned it, Senator Sheldon, the appropriations, the $500,000 that you gave for economic development activities in the county in response to the mill closures. We really appreciate that. I want you to know that the EDC is going to remain diligent in making sure that you get the most bang for your buck out of all of that funding. So we have a lot of opportunities that we haven't had in the past that are open to us for that. So thank you for that, and just know that we want you to view the EDC as a partner, and we'll do whatever we can to keep those projects moving. Last but not least, all of the partners here, so the city, the county, the EDC, the ports, we've all been meeting to go over our SEDS list, our infrastructure list. We've been meeting to update that, and we've got a good list put together. We're now working on prioritizing it, so I can get you the list. The prioritized list probably won't be done until probably early February, but once that happens, we'll make sure that you get that list too. But just having the list, I think, could help you in having that list of infrastructure projects. So we'll make sure we get that, and look forward to EDC members coming to the Hill and visiting you up there, so. And as always, if the EDC can support you in any way, please give me a call, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. I do think there are opportunities to move the Belfair bypass up. It's passed now. It's no secret I voted against the gas tax. However, the gas tax is passed. It's a greatly needed asset in the community. And I think we will have opportunities in the future, maybe not this year, but in the next calendar year, next biennium, to move it up. And I stand committed to making sure that we put the pressure on to get it built early. And so thank you, Lynn. Yes, absolutely, I will be working on that.
I did have a conversation with Kevin Dayton from the Olympic Region, our administrator, and talked to him about the bypass yesterday because it came up in our county commission discussions. But I don't think we're going to lose ground on it. I think we can move up maybe next year. I don't think there's going to be a re-racking of that project list this year. It's just too early to do that. But I think there's something like 98 projects on there.
Yeah.
But I think one thing to think about on transportation too is the federal allocations. Now the federal government has finally passed a transportation bill after so many years of trying. So I think there's some opportunities there. I think your Mason Transit under Brad Patterson has done a really great job of looking at finding some dollars. In the legislature, we appropriated, I think it was $9.2 million for park and rides for Mason County. We were just below the cutoff list. The next project down below us was in the 43rd district, I believe it's 43rd, but Frank Chop, the Speaker of the House, represented that. So Representative Griffey and MacEwen and I called the Speaker's office as well and said, gee, let's get some help here to move up a couple of projects. And so we have the funding now, so we're happy about that. You know, you find allies everywhere in but those dollars will be used for a new park and ride in the Belfair area, and also for upgrades for the park and rides that we have. We don't have enough cameras, we don't have enough lighting, we don't have good security at these park and rides, so people don't use them as much as they should. And we're looking forward to finding a good piece of property in the Belfair area, because it needs to be close to Highway 3. You need to see it as you go up the highway, and so there's lots of standards that have to be met before we can find the right piece of property that works there. You know, this is still transportation, I guess. To just make a comment, I had a visit from a consultant who's working with the Reed family about the roundhouse and the railway, and I think there's great opportunities there for tourism development here in Shelton. If that roundhouse was developed and the whole railroad avenue was oriented a little more towards our history, I think it would be more of an attraction. So the city commission is working real hard on that. I think there's some smiles I see out there from them because of the great opportunities that we would have. So I'm hopeful there as well. And let's see, I made another note, can't find it, I guess. I said on transportation, it's going to be a big issue, but we had I think, a really good transportation package this year. And there's always a concern though, because it's funded by the gas tax. As you get cars that are more efficient, it's not as much realized, but our project is in a good spot, I think, to be finished at the Belfair bypass. One of the controversial things will be, are there any connectors? And you know, the state's not going to pay for a connector road. The bypass is on the east side of the railroad tracks. So as you get, to have a connector road, it's going to have to cross the railroad tracks, and that's that railroad belongs to the United States Navy. That's going to be very difficult. So I did haven't had the conversation yet with emergency services people, but I think those are the people we should talk to in Belford and make sure if we do have any kind of a connector road, that it is, the priority is for emergency services
yeah.
to get to the bypass and deal with any difficulties and accidents that we have. So, yeah, it's going to be good at that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, with that, we'll wrap up today's meeting. Again, I'd like to share my appreciation for your time in joining us today. Senator Shelton and Representative Dan Griffey. Thank you, Josiah, for being here on behalf of the group. And again, my appreciation to our partners, Shelton Mason County Chamber, Mason County EDC, North Mason Chamber, City of Shelton, and Mason County. So thank you all. Have a great day.